From every corner of the globe and from behind every screen, we've gathered to pay honor to a Father who's always present, always faithful, and has the power to redeem. This is Southwest Church Online. Welcome, Church Online community. My name is CJ McFadden, your online pastor, and I get the privilege to help facilitate digital gospel engagement that prayerfully leads to real-life transformation. We are a gospel-centered, multi-ethnic, intergenerational church that loves discipleship, and our heart is to help everyone get planted, rooted, growing, and going on their journey as a follower of Jesus Christ. And really, the only way that we can do this well is by getting to know you better. So whether this is your first time here or you've been with us a long time, the easiest way to get connected is by texting the word SW Online to 94000. Once you do, you'll receive a text option with some additional opportunities and helpful ways to help you take those next steps to make your life all that God intended it to be. So now, let's go ahead and open up your digital message notes as we get ready to worship through the Word with a message from Pastor Kenton Beshore in just a moment.
During the pandemic, we all watched a little more TV, and one of the series that I loved was Ted Lasso. And if you didn't see it, Ted Lasso, I know, so good. Ted Lasso is a story about a football coach in America who coaches D2 football, and he takes a job as a coach for soccer in England in the Premier League. So he's way over his head. And you realize that when he's been hired, he really doesn't know anything about soccer. So right away, you're set up to judge Ted Lasso. Well, what's wrong with this guy? Does he not see what's coming on? And then early on, you learn that the owner of the team, her name's Rebecca, she is a jilted wife, angry at her husband who traded her in for a 25-year-old bimbo. So she's really angry. And when he gets there, you realize that she hired Ted to destroy the team. She doesn't think he's obviously not a good soccer coach. And so she's hired him to destroy the team. And so he's set up to fail. And during this series, in the first part of it, you're wondering, is Ted, is there a genius side to Ted, or is he just a fool? And it's funny, but you're always going, is he smart or is he an idiot? And about episode 8 of season 1, there's a turn that takes place, and you realize that Ted really is kind of a genius. And what happens is the scene, I'm going to show it to you in a second. The scene is in a sports bar, and Rupert, the guy that you hate, Rupert is the guy that, has jilted his ex-wife, and he comes into the bar and announces that he has bought 30% of the soccer team so that he can sit in the owner's box next to his ex-wife, with this young blonde bombshell, just to torment her, but also to highlight the fact that she's trying to run the team into the ground and destroy the team. And so they're having this fight, and she's hurt, and you'll see her in a second. She's the blonde in it. But so then Ted looks at Rupert. Rupert's the bad guy. Ted's the hero. And he says, you guys take your darts pretty seriously over here in England. And he says, you want a game? And Rupert goes, yeah, but if we're going to do it, let's, make it interesting. Let's make a bet. And they end up making a bet. And the bet is that if Rupert wins, he gets to choose the starting lineup for the soccer team for the rest of the season. And if Rupert loses, he can't go into the owner's box. So Ted's trying to be a hero and save the owner of the team from kind of that shame. And so they make the bet. And you think, all right, Ted, hopefully you can pull this off. And then right when they start to play, Rupert goes, oh, I forgot. And he pulls out a custom set of darts. And you realize, oh no, he's been taken again. He's going to lose. And so the scene that I'm going to show you is at the end of the dart game, Ted asks, what do I have to do to win? And he says, they say, you have to get 2 triple 20s and a bullseye, which is nearly impossible. But during it, he gives us the lesson that we want to learn this morning. So watch this.
Mate, what do I need to win?
2 triple 20s and a bullseye.
Good luck. Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. You know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 until I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
There you go. Is that fun? All right. So, what's the lesson? Come on. Be curious, not judgmental. What's the lesson? Be curious, not judgmental. And what's fun about this is that Walt Whitman is not the first person to say it, but it won't surprise you. You know who said it first? Jesus. And so we're in a series about verses that changed our lives, changed my life. And I'm going to share with you a set of verses that absolutely changed my life, and where Jesus basically is saying, don't judge, don't be judgmental, but be curious. And the reason that Jesus says, don't judge, is because judgment, when we are judgmental, it destroys us. It literally blinds us, and it destroys all of our relationships. And so we're going to look at the passage where Jesus says this, and we need Jesus's words. I mean, in the world that we live in on Father's Day, but you just look at what's going on in our world and our society. We live in a world where there is so much criticism, cynicism, and judgmental attitudes. And if we're not careful, we catch it. We have to kind of protect ourselves from it. So we're going to look at a passage of scripture. You're going to see it. So it's in a context. So I'm going to do the verses around it and then highlight the verse that changed my life. Now, the first verse I'm going to read to you is actually a really famous verse. It's called the Golden Rule. It's in the Sermon on the Mount. And for thousands of years, theologians have called this is the Golden Rule. Look at what it says in Luke 6:31. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Simple, right? Do to others. I love it in the Message translation. Look at what it says. Here is a simple rule of thumb for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, then grab the initiative and do it for them. Now, what Jesus is saying is very insightful. He is not saying love people the way that you want to be loved. That's just selfish. Okay? He's not saying that. And he's not saying to give people everything that they want, because that isn't loving, and that turns people into selfish little crazy people. So you can't do that. So what is Jesus saying? It's way more insightful, way more graceful. What Jesus is saying is this: when you're in a situation and you see something going on, put yourself in the other person's situation. Imagine yourself to be them, and to look at the situation with their feelings and their eyes, and then ask the golden rule question. If I were them, seeing it from their standpoint and feeling with their feelings, how would I want to be treated? Okay, there's the golden rule question. And then do that. That's what Jesus is saying in that. Now, why should we love people that way? Because if you're a Jesus follower, that's the kind of love that changed your life. That's the way that God loved us. We lived in a perfect world initially, and we lived in loving relationship with God and each other, creation, and everything was right, but we didn't like it that way, and we wanted life on our own terms. And so we rebelled against God, and we destroyed everything. We destroyed our relationship with God, our relationship with each other. We damaged everything. And here's the most amazing thing. God did not stay distant and judge us from a distance when he had every right to. But incredibly, he loved us too much to leave us that way. And so God showed up in the person of Jesus. And look at what Jesus did. This is amazing. I know the excitement builds. Look at, he literally saw life through our eyes. He felt with our feelings. God became flesh. He became just like us. He experienced what it was like to grow up, what it was like to be belittled, what it was like to be betrayed. He experienced everything that we experienced. And he asked the golden rule question. If I were in their situation, feeling what they felt, overwhelmed with the way they are, how would I want to be treated? And then Jesus did that. He said, you couldn't pay for your sin. You can't earn it. You can't deserve it. You can't work for it. You're absolutely helpless. So what would someone need to do? He goes, I will go to the cross and die your death that you're already dying to give you the life that you could never have so that you could be forgiven and you could be loved. And that's what Jesus did for you. That's his love for you. Yeah. And so Jesus says, when you go out into this world, it's a broken world and things are happening, that's what I want you to do. Put yourself in somebody else's situation. Say, if I was them, in that situation, I felt the way they did. I saw through their eyes. How would I want to be treated? And then treat them that way. Got it? Do you? Okay, let's have a little quiz, all right? So here's the way that I remind myself of it, okay? And it's really helpful. We all have sunglasses. You know why you have sunglasses? Because there's UV rays from the sun. And the sun actually pierces through and it creates white spots on your lenses, and literally the sun will make you go blind if you don't wear sunglasses. So the first reason you have sunglasses is to protect your eyes. The second reason is that it's really bright, and so it gives you perspective. And the glare, you put them on, it's like, oh, thank you, especially on a bright day, all right? So what I want you to do is a way to remember the golden rule is every time you put on sunglasses, go, these are my golden rule glasses. What are these? Golden rule glasses. And every time I put them on, I think of the golden rule. I go, I'm not going to judge people. Judging is what causes me to go blind. When I look at somebody and I go, no, and I ramp up, I'm blind, and it gives me perspective. It causes me to say, what if I were in their situation? So here's a perfect example. Where do you always wear sunglasses? When you drive. And so when you're out driving, okay, you're driving and you're going along and somebody cuts you off. And immediately when they cut you off, you got adrenaline dumped into your system and you're ready to go and you're ready to let them know exactly how you feel about that. But you're not going to do it because you have your golden rule glasses on and you're not going to judge them. You're not going to do it. And you're going to have a different perspective. You're going to say, you know what? I know. See, ask the golden. I know what it's like to be in a hurry. I know what it's like to not pay attention. I know what it's like to cut someone off. And so then I ask the golden rule question because I have my glasses on. When I cut someone off, when I'm not paying attention, when I'm not doing that, how do I want to be treated? Kindness. Given some just grace and space. Here, you have that space. Okay? You don't want somebody yelling, flipping you off. You don't want any of that. You just go and you do that. And so you know that's how you want to be treated. And so treat them that way. That's what Jesus says, all right? That's it. It's a whole golden rule. Okay, you're a little remedial. Let's do it again, all right? You come home, okay? When you come home, you've worked, your spouse has worked, everything's going on. You don't know what kind of day they've had. So what do? Put on those golden rule glasses and you say, what happened in your day today? And you take an interest in them. And as you're hearing that, you're going, if I went through that kind of day, how would I feel? What would I experience? How would I want to be treated? And then do that, okay? You treat them. You're still a little slow, okay? You're not even participating, all right? So let's try again. It's Father's Day, okay? And fathers, let's just think, is fatherhood generally celebrated in culture? Well said. No, okay? No, they're not. Everybody thinks, everybody pretty much thinks they can be a better dad. Now, I wouldn't say this unless it's Father's Day, but moms, you're great at being moms. Moms know how to be moms, right? But what's the problem with every mom? Wouldn't say this on Mother's Day. Moms think they know how to be dads. And how many moms know how to be dads? None. Okay, sorry, moms, you don't, okay? But see, you can't come after me because it's my day, all right? I have 4 sons. And so we know that, but we don't ever act down on it. We just smile when we're told how to be a dad from someone who doesn't know how to be a dad. And so we're going, okay, you go. But so it's our day. So if that's how, you're enjoying that too much. So if that's the day that we're having, okay, and you put on the golden rule sunglasses and you go, if I were a dad in a world that it doesn't celebrate dad and nobody really honors him as a dad, if I had that experience and I felt those feelings, how would I want to be treated today? That's right, wonderfully, kindness, you go. And so you would say to a dad, you're good looking today. You're a great dad. Not just happy Father's Day. You're a great dad. See, now you got it? Do you? Okay. So the question is, you all knew that before you walked in. And so, because you're good church people, and if you didn't, you generally even knew the golden rule, then why don't we live that way? Selfish is a good answer, but not quite the accurate answer. But if you've been paying attention from the very beginning, it is because we are judgmental and not curious, okay? That's why, okay? That's the problem. And so we're going to look at it. And so look at what Jesus says in this passage. And these are the verses that changed my life. On the screen, it says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. What does Jesus say? Let's read it together, okay? You're not paying attention. Do not, come on, everybody together. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Okay, I'll take it from here. Do not condemn others, or it will come back against you. Forgive others, and you will be forgiven. Now, here's the verses that changed my life, and we're going to come to them, which is really the essence of being curious. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own eye? How can you think of saying, friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye, okay? Why is it that we don't live according to the golden rule? Because we are very good at judging people. Now, Jesus is not saying there shouldn't be a judicial system. There should be. And he's not saying that you shouldn't have critical analysis. But what Jesus is saying in this passage is that you do not get to make the final pronouncement on anybody's heart or motivation because you can't know that. It's impossible as a human to know what's going on in another person's heart and what is motivating them. And so we have this overwhelming problem, and the overwhelming problem is that we are very good at judging. It comes naturally, and we are very good at it. There is a researcher, Dr. Jamil Zaki, who is from Columbia University, and he wrote a book, How to Be Hopeful in a Cynical World. And he found out that we have what he calls is a negativity bias. We tend to pay more attention towards what is negative information than positive. And the way they did this, they proved it, is they did a whole bunch of reviews for teachers. And so say as a teacher, you had 500 students and you had 497 positive reviews. 497, I mean, that's 99.9% positive. But 3 students gave you a negative review. Do you know what the professors focused on? The 3 negative reviews. It literally kept them up at night. It caused self-doubt, and they respond to it. And here's what's worse. Do you know what happened to those professors? They began to judge all their students as negative and small-minded, and they weren't willing to trust their students just because they focused on what was negative. He says what we have is, what's worse, is a cynical genius syndrome. And here's what that means. We glamorize the cynical and judgmental person. Overwhelmingly, studies show that us, and it wasn't Christians that do this, it's just all of us, people in the United States, we tend to believe that a person is smarter who is judgmental and cynical, that they're better at choosing talent, they're better at identifying lies, and that they're better in interpersonal relationships. And the truth is, they did all of this research, is that judgmental and cynical people are way less effective, they are way less smarter, and they can't judge talent as well. And so we put our faith in judgmental, cynical people, and we are wrong. Here's what they conclude. Jamil does. He says that the truth is this: wisdom is found in people who are kind, loving, and curious. That's what it is. Now, think, that's just the facts. Jesus says it, researchers back it up, but here's what's amazing. The thing is that judgmental people, when you go on social media, what do you run into? Loving, compassionate, kind people, or judgmental, cynical people? Very cynical. And when you watch the news, doesn't matter what kind of news you watch, overwhelmingly, news is cynical and judgmental, and it poisons you. It just absolutely destroys who we are. Here was an amazing statistic. So now you realize how important the golden rule is. Jesus is saying, put yourself in another person's situation, imagine you were them, and say, how would you want to be treated? And when we treat people, the researchers found out this: when you treat people with kindness and love and compassion, they are even more trustworthy and more loving. And so what you give, you get back, which is what Jesus said here. Here's an amazing statistic. How many people, not just people in this room, but people in the whole Coachella Valley, how many people act in what percentage of the people in the Coachella Valley act in a trustworthy manner through their day? How often are people trustworthy? What's the statistic? All the time? 10%? 20? They did a study. Do you know how often people act trustworthy? 80% of the time. 80%, I know. And now this is why you don't believe that. Because you all drove here today, okay? And when you drove here today, you passed hundreds of cars and hundreds of drivers. And how did they drive? Trustworthy, reasonably, loving, and effective. They didn't cause you. But there was one driver, that guy in that blue car, okay? And you're just wound up. Now, you don't focus on the hundreds of cars that you passed today where they did great. You focus on the one guy in the blue car. People are crazy out there, okay? Statistically, is that true? It's not true. There's 1 in 500 people driving the car, but you focus on the one because of the negativity bias, the cynical bias. We are so good at being judgmental. You'll have 50 conversations a day on Father's Day that are positive, loving, and good, and there'll be one that'll go sideways, and which one will you focus on? Okay, so Jesus shows us a different way. He says, don't judge. And the reason he says don't judge is because it's coming back at you. Don't do it, okay? And it'll destroy relationships. It will blind you, and it will hurt your heart. And then the second thing he says is be curious. And he says it in the most fascinating way. And these are the verses that changed my life. And they're not easy verses. They're very easy to understand, but they're very penetrating. So what is the secret of being curious? Well, Jesus tells this powerful word picture, and it's really found in the secret of the speck in a person's eye. So he says, when you see a small speck in a person's eye, and you're tempted to zoom in on it, and he gives a picture of a person that's got tweezers, and they're going, here, let me help you with that speck. And they're coming at it, and what do they have in their own eye? A log. And you're going, oh, slow down, Scooter, because, you're like going, let me help you with that, okay? And so he says, first, you have to deal with the board or the log in your own eye. How do you deal with the board in your own eye? By being curious. And here's how it works. When you see someone who is controlling or competitive or they're angry, instead of judging them And you start to feel it's winding up inside of you and you go, they're so controlling, they're so competitive. I hate people, he's always competing with me. They always want to win. As soon as you start to feel that winding up on you, be curious and ask this question. How might I be controlling? How might I be competitive? How might I be angry? And as soon as you ask that, there is a snarling, selfish side of you that's going to say, I don't do that, which is not a good sign for you. Because you've got the emotion that's sort of tipping it off and you're going, I so don't do that. And you're learning one of the most important lessons of life, which denial is not just a river in Egypt. I know, some of you, what do you say? What's that? Okay. And what happens in your mind? Now pay attention, because this is what happens and this is what destroys curiosity. You see somebody competitive, you see somebody angry, you see somebody, that's always controlling. And you, instead of in your mind, you go, how might I be that way? You say, I don't do that. I'm just trying to help. I just want them to be the best they can be. I just am offering a little constructive criticism. No, you're not. Okay, you're just living in denial. When you see somebody who takes too much credit, or somebody who's proud, or somebody who wants to be the center of attention, and it begins to wind you up, that's the speck that's identifying the board. When you see somebody that's insensitive, impatient, or ungrateful, and you start to judge, be curious. And what does curiosity say? How might I be controlling? How might I be impatient? How might I be like that person? Why is it that those issues are winding me up so much? And what is it that gets it in me? And curiosity is the birthplace of love. And so the speck is the secret to identifying my issues. My controlling, my competitiveness, my anger, my issues. And Jesus says, if you don't first deal with your issues, the log in your own eye, when you see the speck, is there really a speck in a person's eye? Yes. Does it really hurt the person? Absolutely. But if you haven't dealt with the issue in your life, your controlling, your anger, your impatience, if you haven't dealt with it, what do you do about the speck? Nothing. It's not your business. You let it go. You just walk away. You're not the person to help them. But the genius in what Jesus says is that the speck identifies the log in your own eye. And everything in you is going to go, no, I am so not that way. Every time we judge somebody, the defense mechanism is to go, but they are so controlling. I am so not. And everybody's looking around you and going, you want to do this? Let's just pick somebody right now. You want to stand up, Courtney? We'll just identify your issue. Okay, which one? Who knows? And then you just go, but the issue is everyone knows your issues because you're identifying them all the time because you're all wound up judging somebody else. Okay, got it? All right, not yet. Okay, so I'll tell you a story. Okay, this story is a defining story in the Bible, and really part of the reason that the story is in the Bible is to identify this one truth. Be curious. Be curious, don't be judgmental. It's a story about David, King David, who united God's people and created peace in the land. And it was in a time when kings would go out in battle and they would fight with their armies, but David didn't go out, and so he's back at home in Jerusalem, and he's in his palace, and he's bored and he's not where he should be, and he's bored. And he looks across and he sees a woman and he wants that woman. And so he takes that woman who is actually married to one of his generals. And so now he's messed up his life. And so what he has to do is he tries to cover it up. And so he actually has that, Bathsheba's her name, her husband, she has him killed. And so then he marries Bathsheba and covers it up, and he believes that he gets away with it. So what happens is sometime later, God sends Nathan the prophet to David, and he says, David, I got a problem and I need your advice. We've got a legal issue. Tell me what I should do. He said, there's a rich rancher who has thousands of sheep and goat and he's very wealthy, lives right next door to a very poor farmer who has only one lamb that is a household pet. The rich rancher had a friend over and his guest, and instead of going out and taking one of his many animals, he went and he took from the poor farmer next door the lamb that was a family pet, and he butchered it and he served it to his friend. And David listened to this story, and with his teeth clenched and fist in a ball says, "That man will pay with his life." And Nathan looked at David and said, "You are the man." Now, the lesson is found in the emotion of David. Did the rancher need to pay for what he did? It's not a trick question, come on. Does the rancher need to pay for what he did? Yes. Should he pay with his life? No, the death penalty for, no, you don't do that, okay? But why is David so enraged by it? Because David hasn't dealt with his own selfishness, his own lust, his own greed, and the brokenness in his own life. And when he's judging in this story, who is he judging? He's judging himself, and he's showing what the real issue is. And so you just see how quickly we move. The secret of the speck is that it literally points to the issues in our life. And I'm not saying that everything you see in another person's life is a part of your life. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying it's inappropriate to confront sin. But when you get wound up about an issue of control or anger or somebody being ungrateful, if you get all wound up about, people are just too proud around here and they're doing something, he goes, you're really identifying the speck in your life. So, okay, that was your big moment, just Ted Lasso moment. Don't judge, be curious. So, be curious, be curious. That's what Jesus is saying. No one wants a blind ophthalmologist working on their eyes. And no one wants a blind friend with a plank in their eye to try to help them out with life, okay? Nobody wants that. Look at what it says in Romans chapter 2, verse 1. It says, you may think that you can condemn such people, but you are just as bad, and you have no excuse when you say that they are wicked and should be punished. You are condemning yourself, for you who judge others do these very same things. So, how much grace do you really want to cut other people in your life? It's a very good answer. His answer was a lot, okay? How much grace do you really want to cut other people in your life? You're not supposed to judge, so what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to give grace. Well, how much grace? A little bit of grace? Okay, well, Jesus actually answers it in this same passage. Don't you love it when he gives you the answer to what you want? Look at what Jesus says. Give, and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full. Now, these words you won't understand, I'll explain, but pay attention to them. Press down, shaking together, and make room for more. Running over and poured into your lap, the amount you give will determine the amount you get back. Now, you don't understand these words because you don't buy grain in the first century. In the first century, they bought grain by measure, but you buy grain by weight. So if you go buy a box of Cheerios, it's huge, giant box of Cheerios, and you open it up and you look in and there's 4, okay? And you're going, I've been cheated. But if you read the small print on the box, it says, you have bought, Cheerios by weight, not by volume. And you might have noticed that there's some shifting and settling of your Cheerios during shipment, but you got the full weight. You buy weight, so you get 16 ounces, and so you do it. But in Jesus's day, you bought by measure. And so this is how you would do it. You would go to buy grain, and the person would take a measure, and he'd scoop it and knock it off. That's a fair measure. Is that how much grain you want to give a person? It's not the way that Jesus describes it. What did he use? He says, give and you give. What kind of measure? You give it full, pressed down, shaken together, running over. And then it's poured into your lap because literally they had togas and they pour it into their lap, okay? So just get the picture. This is how you give grace. You take a measure and you go, that's not enough grace for you. You know, I'm not gonna knock off the top. I'm gonna leave in there and go, that's not, you know what? And so they set it down, they shake it. And what happens when you shake grain? It settles down. So, you know, go there and he pours more into it and you go, no, I can get more in there for you. So then you shake it, then you press it down. So you go, and then you shake it together and you go, no, I can get even more. So you scoop it in until it's running over and you go, that's how much I'm gonna give to you. And with whatever measure you use, it's gonna be measured back, which is very important because some of you have about a thimble full of grace. And so you go, I'll crush it with my thimble. So you take your little thimble and you go, you shake it, press it down, and go, here's, that's all you get. And they go, what do? Great, and they take the thimble from you, and then they do the same thing, but they only have a thimble because that's all you gave them. But if you have a bucket, and you go, here's a bucket, and you take the bucket, and you fill it, you press it down, you shake it together till it's running over, and you go, here, what's coming back at you? That's not a lot of excitement for all of what I gave you. So Jesus says, you give the way you want it to be given back. How much grace? I give shovelfuls of grace. I give truckloads of grace. You know why? Because that's what I need. And so look at what Jesus says. Then at the end, he says, then Jesus gave this following illustration. Can a blind person lead another? Oh no. Won't both of them fall into a ditch? Students are not greater than their teacher, but the student who is fully trained will be like his teacher. If you go out into our world and you listen to cynical, judgmental people, that's what you're gonna spit back. And that's what everybody's gonna spit at you. Or if you go out into the world and you give kindness and love and grace. You live by the golden rule. You just put yourself in another person's situation and you say, if I was them with their feelings, and if I saw things the way they saw, how would I want to be treated? And then you treat them that way. Research says, and Jesus says, you'll change the world. People will respond and they will be more trustworthy. And they will be more loving, and they will be more compassionate, and you will guard your heart. So every day, when you go out, you put on your golden rule sunglasses, and today especially, you can look at dads and say, you look good today. Stand for the benediction. Hold out your hands to receive God's blessing. Father, look at your children. They love you. Would you bless them and keep them? Would you cause your face to shine upon them and be gracious to them? Would you lift up the light of your countenance and give them peace? We ask in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go in God's grace. Have a great Father's Day.
What a great and powerful message from Pastor Kenton Beshore. And now it's our prayer that you would go this week and experience a love, a joy, a peace, a patience, a kindness, a gentleness, and a self-control that surpasses all understanding because it's found in a Father who knows you, who loves you, and cares for you, and really likes you too. Lean on him this week. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a great week, and God bless.